Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we are taking a closer look at a concept that's often celebrated as a cornerstone of Indian ingenuity, Jugaad. But we're going to dig into the idea that there might be a hidden cost to this mindset. Let's jump right in.
All right, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. You've probably heard of Jugaad. It's that incredible knack for improvising, for making things work with whatever you've got on hand. It's all about clever hacks and resourceful solutions, especially when you're short on resources. It's basically a form of survival intelligence, and you have to admit, it's pretty impressive stuff.
But here's where things get interesting. This is the big question our source material really wants us to think about. While this skill is amazing for helping people get by in the short term, could it actually be holding back progress in the long run? I mean, what happens when a nation needs something more than just clever fixes to really build for the future? To really get our heads around this, we have to draw a really sharp distinction between two very different ways of thinking. On one hand, you have ingenuity, which is the very heart of Jugaad, and on the other, you have true, deep innovation. And when you put them side by side like this, the contrast is, well, it's pretty stark, isn't it? Jugaad is all about the quick fix. It's about bypassing an obstacle right now with what you already have. Innovation, though, that's a completely different beast. It's about a deep understanding of the problem, committing to long timelines, and, this is crucial, having a real tolerance for failure so you can build something that has never existed before. And this right here, this really gets to the core of it. Jugaad thrives in an environment where systems are weak or just plain broken. You have to improvise because you just can't rely on the infrastructure around you. Innovation, however, needs the opposite. It absolutely requires stability. It needs a predictable environment where taking a big long-term risk actually feels safe. So you have to ask, how did a culture of shortcuts become so dominant, so celebrated? Well, this next section really dives into the systemic reasons why. And the thing is, it's not some random accident. It's actually a very logical outcome of the environment. I mean, just think about it for a second. If the institutions you're supposed to rely on are unpredictable, if capital is incredibly hard to come by, and if bureaucracy grinds everything to a halt, well, taking a huge long-term risk becomes incredibly dangerous. In that kind of world, a quick fix isn't just a clever trick, it's the safer, more rational choice every single time. And this is the point where a huge cultural shift happened. What started out as just a necessary survival skill, a way to cope, was slowly romanticized. It got turned into this celebrated cultural value. But there was a side effect, right? The deep, patient, and, let's be honest, often frustrating work of real innovation got pushed to the side.
The fundamental problem is that the ecosystem itself often ends up being hostile to real research. Because think about it. Research is slow. It involves a ton of failure, and any real payoff could be years, even decades away. But the system, as it stands, is built to reward the exact opposite: immediate results and quick, flashy wins. And all of this creates a really powerful set of incentives that push people in one direction. If your career is judged on a year-to-year basis, if your funding could just vanish tomorrow, and if failure carries a serious social stigma, well, why on earth would you choose the incredibly risky path of invention? The most logical, the most strategic choice is to simply imitate what you know already works. And it is so important to frame this correctly. This isn't about people being lazy or not having enough ambition. Our source argues that it's a form of strategic caution. It's a smart, calculated response to a really tough environment that just doesn't protect or reward the people who dare to fail. This cultural difference in what we value is also really telling. In a lot of innovative societies, it's the builders, the scientists, the engineers, the researchers who are held in really high esteem. But in India, social prestige often leans more towards administrative power or political influence. And that sends a powerful message to young people about which career paths are really valued by society. So, what's the real-world cost of relying so heavily on improvisation? Well, it can lead to a pretty vicious cycle of consumption, dependency, and ultimately the smartest people just leaving. This really paints a stark picture. India is a massive, enthusiastic consumer of global technology, no doubt about it. But when you look at the foundational tech, the stuff that actually powers the modern world, very little of it is created domestically. And this creates a major dependency, where innovation is effectively being outsourced to other countries. So what happens to the people who actually do want to build these foundational things? Well, a lot of them leave. And the source here frames this brain drain not as some kind of betrayal or lack of patriotism, but as a completely logical choice. It's an exit from an ecosystem that just doesn't support the long, hard, and often lonely work of creation. It's another survival choice.
So look, the crucial point is this. Jugaad has its limits. You simply can't improvise your way to building a semiconductor factory or designing a jet engine. Those massive achievements require the very things that the Jugaad mindset is designed to avoid: boring, painstaking consistency, the acceptance of repeated, costly failure, and decades of patient, unwavering investment.
Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, what's the path forward? Let's take a look at how you can actually make the leap from short-term cleverness to deep, sustained creation. Well, history gives us a pretty clear blueprint. Other nations that became innovation powerhouses didn't just stumble into it. It took decades of deliberate, patient work. They started by funding basic research, then they made sure to insulate R&D from the short-term whims of politics. And, maybe most importantly, they worked to change the culture around failure. Innovation came, but only after decades of patience. And this right here is the absolute key lesson. True innovation isn't just about having a few brilliant people. It's about creating systems and institutions that can sustain that brilliance over the long haul, through all the ups and downs. It's not just about genius, it's about institutional patience. So what can actually be done? The source lays out 4 key shifts. First, protect long-term research from short-term political pressure. Second, normalize failure. See it as valuable data, not a personal disgrace. Third, elevate the social status of the builders, the creators. And finally, build patient institutions that value and reward the slow, sometimes boring, but absolutely essential, consistent work that real innovation is built upon. Ultimately, the argument comes down to this. While ingenuity helps you survive today, it's sustained invention that lets you lead tomorrow. The path forward demands a really difficult cultural shift, moving from celebrating the quick fix to truly respecting the long, hard, and often thankless road of creation. So I'll leave you with a question. What's one thing in our own environment that rewards shortcuts over substance?